What if the entire universe was listening to your thoughts, not just passively, but with the intent to obey? What if your mind wasn't a prisoner of circumstance, but a hidden key to the miraculous? You've been taught that reality is outside of you, but the secret is it begins within. This is not theory, it is law. Thomas Troward understood that the mind is not just a tool, it's divine in origin. Your thoughts, when aligned with this divine principle, are commands to the universe. You were not created weak, you were designed to create. Troward revealed that the spiritual and mental realms are one, and your ability to shape life lies in understanding their unity. The divine secret is simple yet hidden. Your mind, when disciplined and directed, is the very channel through which the infinite creates form. Not some of the time, all of the time. When you speak to yourself, you are speaking to the divine blueprint. The question is, what have you been saying? The greatest illusion ever sold to mankind is the belief that power lies outside of us. From childhood, we are trained to look outward to authorities, systems, and institutions for validation, answers, and solutions. But rarely are we taught to look inward, to understand the immense creative force already placed within our consciousness. Troward's teachings are not about adding something new to us, but revealing what was always present. His work dismantles the illusion of separateness between us and the source of all creation. He shows us that thought, when fused with intentionality and spiritual alignment, becomes the architect of reality. You are not a passive observer in this life. You are the initiator of its events. The law is impersonal, exact, and constant. It does not discriminate between positive and negative thought. It simply reflects what you consistently entertain. The divine secret is not in begging or hoping, but in aligning your consciousness with what you wish to experience. When you understand that every thought sends out a signal, and every feeling wraps that signal in vibration, you begin to see yourself as a transmitter. Just like a radio station sends out a frequency that matches a certain kind of music, your mind broadcasts a frequency that matches the quality of your life. It's not about whether you want something or not. It's about whether you're dominant. Vibration aligns with it. If you think abundance, but constantly worry about lack, the universe responds to the worry, not the wish. If you pray for health but dwell in fear, your dominant frequency is illness. Troward's wisdom invites us to go deeper, beyond surface desires into the realm of mental habits. It is not enough to say affirmations once in the morning and then complain the rest of the day. The divine mind operates on law. It responds not to our words, but to the state of being those words emerge from. This is why belief is so central to Troward's teachings. Belief is not merely mental assent, it is spiritual conviction. When you believe something, you feel it as already real. You walk differently. You speak differently. You carry yourself with the calm authority of someone who knows. That is the creative state. It is not about trying to make something happen. It is about knowing it already has, and allowing the outer conditions to align with that inner knowing. This is not easy, because it goes against the programming of fear and doubt that society has installed in us. We are trained to expect disappointment, to hedge our bets, to protect our hearts by expecting the worst. But such thinking kills manifestation before it can begin. The divine secret is not in doing more, but in being more. Being aligned, being open, being certain that the law is working, even when you don't see the evidence yet. Troward was a master of understanding the subtle interplay between thought and spirit. He knew that the mind is not a random byproduct of the brain, but the instrument through which divine intelligence expresses. You are not a body with a soul. You are a soul with a body, and the soul's first language is thought, but not any thought infused with spiritual authority. This is why fear-based thinking is so destructive. It is not just unpleasant, it is creative in the wrong direction. When you fear, you are using divine mind power in reverse. You are calling forth the very things you hope to avoid. This is why Troward emphasized the need for mental discipline, not to be rigid or harsh with oneself, but to understand that your thoughts have consequence, not in some vague metaphysical way, but in very real, tangible form. What you dwell on, you draw on. What you expect, you prepare for. What you believe, you build. The divine secret is that your reality is not happening to you. It is happening through you. Life is not something you endure. It is something you shape. Every conversation you have with yourself is a seed planted in the soil of your experience. If your self-talk is critical, fearful, or limited, your outer life will mirror that inner atmosphere. If your inner dialogue is expansive, loving, and confident, life begins to reflect that back to you in surprising ways. This is not magic, it is law. And like any law, it works whether you understand it or not. A person may not understand the law of electricity, but they can still get shocked if they touch the wrong wire. In the same way, people who misuse their mind by default, by negativity, by ignorance suffer the consequences without ever knowing why. Troward's mission was to awaken humanity to this silent but supreme force within, to give us back the power we unknowingly gave away. Most people live in reaction. They react to news, to gossip, to bills, to illness, to relationships. Their entire life becomes a string of emotional responses to outer stimuli. But when you live like that, you are no longer creating, you are being created. You are a leaf tossed by the winds of circumstance, not the wind itself. The divine mind within you does not react, it originates. It chooses, it commands. That is what you are meant to do with your consciousness, not to be a slave to appearances, but a master of perception. When Troward wrote about mind power, he was not speaking of some mystical force reserved for a few. He was speaking of the everyday miracle within every person, the ability to think a thought, hold it, feel it, and see it take form. That is the divine process. Invisible thought becomes visible thing. That is how creation works, from the unseen to the seen, from spirit to matter, from belief to experience. But it requires clarity. The universe does not respond to confusion. If your thoughts are scattered, your results will be scattered. If you want something but doubt it, that doubt becomes part of the signal. You must become single-minded, not obsessed, but certain. This is where spiritual practice comes in, not as ritual, but as training the mind to focus, training the emotions to align, training your energy to stay in the frequency of what you desire. It is like tuning a radio. If you want to hear music, you must dial into the right station. If you are even slightly off, all you get is static. Life is the same. If you want peace, you must tune into peace. If you want abundance, you must tune into abundance. That means thinking it, feeling it, walking in it even when nothing has shown up yet. Especially then, because that is faith, and faith is the bridge between the spiritual and the physical. The mind, Troward taught, is the meeting place between God and man. It is where the divine takes form. It is where the invisible becomes visible. But most people allow this sacred space to be cluttered with doubt, fear, judgment, and repetition. They replay old stories, rehearse future disasters, and wonder why nothing changes. The divine secret is that change does not begin with action. It begins with awareness, with noticing what you think, with choosing to think better, with challenging the beliefs that no longer serve you. You are not at the mercy of your programming. You are the programmer. You can upgrade your mind the same way you upgrade your phone, by downloading new thoughts, new beliefs, new ways of seeing yourself and the world. But you must do it consciously, with intention, with reverence, with the understanding that each thought is a tool or a trap. You must decide which it will be. You do not need to understand quantum physics or master ancient texts to access this power. You only need to become aware of yourself, to watch your thoughts, to observe how they feel in your body, to notice how they shape your energy. If a thought makes you feel small, it is not aligned with your divine self. If a thought makes you feel expansive, peaceful, inspired, that is the direction to follow. Troward knew that the divine speaks in harmony. It does not shout. It does not panic. It whispers. And that whisper always brings clarity, not confusion. The more you quiet the noise of the world, the more you hear the voice of truth within. That voice is always guiding, always loving, always available. It is your connection to the source of all creation, and it speaks the language of mind. Every great transformation begins with an inner decision. Not a decision to hustle harder or chase more, but a decision to think differently, to see yourself not as broken or limited, but as a being of infinite potential, to see your mind as the birthplace of miracles, not someday, not after more work or more worth, but now, as you are. This is the divine secret that Troward guarded and gave. that you already are what you seek, that the power is already yours, and that every time you choose to believe in that power, you realign with the truth of who you are. The laws of mind are not reserved for saints or sages. They are available to anyone who dares to believe that life can be different, that thoughts matter, that you matter, because you do more than you know, more than you've been told. The invisible is not less real than the visible. It is more real, because it is the cause behind all appearances. What you hold in mind eventually molds what you hold in your hand. This is not imagination, it is law, and once you begin to think in harmony with this law, everything changes, not all at once, but surely you will begin to see signs, synchronicities, small shifts that lead to bigger ones. You will feel lighter, freer, more connected. You will begin to trust yourself again. And in trusting yourself, you begin to trust life, not because it always gives you what you want, but because you know that you can always create what you need. That is true freedom. That is true power. That is the divine inheritance that Troward so passionately pointed to, and it lives in you, right now, waiting to be awakened by your belief in its presence. The moment you recognize your mind as the creative center of your world, a shift begins. But recognition is not enough. You must believe. You must dare to feel the invisible as more real than what you see. Most people are bound by the illusion of matter, unaware that matter is shaped by the silent forces of thought. Troward taught that spirit is the only substance, and mind is its movement. If spirit is life, mind is the law through which life expresses. You are not simply thinking, you are generating the mold of your future. Every belief you hold is a seed planted in the soil of universal intelligence. Faith is not. Blinded is focused vision on what cannot yet be seen. To activate the divine secret, you must learn to think deliberately, to hold your vision in the face of appearances, to expect the universe to respond not as a servant, but as a mirror. Nothing comes to you uninvited. Everything begins in mind. To the casual observer, life seems chaotic and unexplainable. Some people seem to flourish with little effort, while others suffer despite their hard work and good intentions. This disparity has led many to believe that luck or fate governs the outcomes of our lives. But Troward illuminated a deeper principle. He taught that mind is the channel through which spirit moves into form, and that the outcomes we experience are not arbitrary, they are exact reflections of the mental images we consistently hold. When you understand that, you no longer see yourself as a victim of life's randomness. Instead, you become curious about the nature of your thoughts, your emotions, your beliefs. You begin to see your mind not just as a receiver of experiences, but as the originating source. You are not here to passively observe life, but to consciously shape it. And you shape it first with the pictures you allow to take root in your imagination. Imagination is not fantasy. Imagination is the spiritual faculty through which divine mind speaks. When you imagine, you are not escaping reality, you are creating it. Every building, every invention, every poem, every business, every work of art began as an image in someone's mind. It existed there long before it existed in the world. That is the divine pattern, first in thought, then in form. When you imagine something with faith and feeling, you initiate the unseen forces of creation. But if your imagination is left uncontrolled, it becomes destructive. If you constantly rehearse failure, rejection, or fear in your mind, you are creating energetic patterns that invite those conditions into your experience. Troward emphasized that your mental imagery must be clear, purposeful, and charged with belief. It must not be casual. It must be sacred. You must guard your imagination, like a gate to your destiny, because in truth, that is exactly what it is. It's not just about thinking positively. It's about thinking intentionally. About holding images in your mind that match the life you wish to live. Not just when things are going well, but especially when they are not. That is the test of real spiritual maturity, not whether you can visualize when you're inspired, but whether you can persist in holding your vision when the evidence says otherwise. That is where most people give up. They allow the outer world to dictate their inner world. They let the facts rob them of their faith. But what they do not realize is that the facts are temporary. They are the result of old thinking, old feeling, old patterns, to create something new. You must think something new even when the old is still in front of you. You must live mentally in the experience you wish to create, until the outer world catches up. That is the divine practice. That is the divine secret. Troward made it clear that life is not reacting to your surface thoughts, but to your inner convictions. You can say, I am wealthy all day, but if you feel poor and expect lack, your dominant vibration is not wealth. Words without belief are powerless. It is the emotional charge behind your thoughts that activates the law. This is why two people can say the same affirmation and get completely different results. One says it with fear and desperation, the other with calm knowing. The second one gets results because the universe doesn't respond to words, it responds to frequency. And your frequency is determined by your belief. Belief is not just an idea. It is a mental, emotional state of certainty. When you believe something, you stop looking for proof. You act accordingly. You speak accordingly. You walk accordingly. That kind of belief is magnetic. It bends reality. It rearranges events, people, and circumstances to match its vibration. To develop that kind of belief, you must train your mind like an athlete trains the body. You must be deliberate, consistent, focused. You cannot allow every fear, doubt, or complaint to occupy your inner space. You must become the master of your attention, because attention is energy. Where your attention goes, your energy flows. If you focus on what is missing, you amplify lack. If you focus on what is possible, you invite expansion. This is not about ignoring problems, it is about refusing to worship them. Problems are not permanent. They are patterns, and patterns can be changed, but only by thinking on a higher level than the one that created them. That is what Troward meant when he said, the solution always exists on a higher plane. Your job is to elevate your thinking to match the life you desire, not to drag your desire down to match your current conditions. This elevation is not something that happens by chance. It is a choice you make every day, every hour, every moment. Do I give power to fear, or do I give power to faith? Do I dwell in limitation, or do I speak from abundance? Do I believe what I see, or do I see what I believe? These are not abstract questions. They are the foundation of your life. Every answer you give, consciously or unconsciously, becomes part of the energetic blueprint you are broadcasting. And the universe responds not to your circumstances, but to your blueprint. It cannot help but respond. It is law. The law of mind does not sleep, does not judge, does not delay. It simply reflects. It is a perfect mirror. The sooner you understand that, the sooner you stop blaming life and start shaping it. You take back your power, not through force, but through awareness. Awareness is the beginning of all transformation. When you become aware of your inner dialogue, your habitual emotions, your recurring patterns, you create space for change. Without awareness, you are a puppet pulled by invisible strings. With awareness, you become the puppeteer. You can stop, observe, redirect. You can choose new thoughts. You can plant new seeds. This is the power of consciousness. It is not about controlling life, it is about cooperating with the principles that govern it. Troward didn't teach superstition or magical thinking. He taught spiritual science. He taught that the mind operates by exact principles, and that those who understand and apply them will see consistent results. You don't have to be perfect, you just have to be intentional. You just have to become more loyal to your vision than to your fear. One of the most revolutionary ideas Troward shared is that thought and feeling combined create form. Not thought alone, not feeling alone, but the union of the two. This is the divine marriage. The conscious mind chooses the thought, and the subconscious mind responds to the feeling attached to it. When they are in harmony, creation begins. But if they are in conflict, if you think one thing and feel another, there is no creation, only confusion. That is why clarity is so powerful. When your thought and feeling match, you become unstoppable. You send a pure signal. You speak to the universe in a language it understands, not a whisper, but a command. And the universe, being law, must obey. Most people never realize this because they live on the surface. They try to change their lives through willpower and action, never realizing that the real shift happens in consciousness first. You can work tirelessly to build a life that matches your dream, but if your inner state is one of fear or self-doubt, that fear will sabotage your efforts. The law is always working. You cannot turn it off. So the question is not whether it's working, the question is, are you working with it or against it? Are you feeding the vision or the fear? Are you planting faith or planting worry? Whatever you plant grows. The soil does not care what seed you give it. It will grow poison as easily as it grows fruit. Your mind is the same. It will grow whatever you feed it. That is the secret, and that is the responsibility. Responsibility is not a burden, it is a gift. It means you are not powerless. You are not at the mercy of the past, or society, or anyone else. You are the source, the origin, the cause. This may feel heavy at first, especially if you've lived a life shaped by pain or trauma. But it's also liberating, because if you created limitation through unconscious thought, you can create freedom through conscious thought. You can begin again right now, this moment, by choosing a new belief, a new image, a new vibration. You don't have to figure out how it will happen. You just have to decide that it will. The how belongs to the divine intelligence. Your part is to believe, to hold the image, to live in alignment with it, and to trust the law to do its work. Troward called this the law of growth. Just like a seed grows when planted, watered, and placed in the right conditions, so does your vision. You don't need to dig up the seed to check on it. You just need to nurture it, protect it from the weeds of doubt and fear. Give it sunlight through joyful expectation. Give it water through daily mental practice. And give it time. Some seeds sprout quickly, others take longer, but all respond to the right environment. Your inner world is that environment. Keep it clean. Keep it focused. Keep it aligned with what you want, not with what is, but with what will be. That is the practice. That is the process. That is the power. This is not about escaping reality. It is about rewriting it, not with denial, but with design. You are not pretending something is true. You are making it true through the power of your mind. And when your mind is aligned with truth, everything begins to shift. People show up. Opportunities arise. The path unfolds, not always in the way you expect, but always in a way that reflects your inner state. That is how the law works. That is how mind creates. That is how spirit expresses through form. And that is what Troward devoted his life to teaching. Not a religion, not a ritual, but a revelation, a realization that the kingdom of heaven is within, and that to enter it, you need only believe in the power of your own divine mind. Why does the world feel chaotic for some and ordered for others? Why do some people rise from nothing while others sink despite having everything? The secret lies not in effort, but in alignment. Thomas Troward revealed that thought fused with emotion becomes creative force. When you desire something with clarity and believe in it with feeling, you engage the deeper powers of the mind. But there's more. Your subconscious is the silent builder. It does not argue. It only obeys. If you believe you are destined to suffer, it will build experiences of pain. If you believe you are meant to rise, it will open doors no man can shut. The divine mind in you never sleeps. It is always at work, shaping your inner convictions into outer reality. Most people try to change the outer world while their inner world remains unchanged. That is why they fail. The secret is to begin within. Change your belief, and you change your world. When you look closely at the lives of those who consistently experience growth, peace, and manifestation, you will find that their success is not merely the result of hard work or good luck, but the byproduct of deep mental alignment. These individuals may or may not be aware of Troward's teachings, but they are certainly applying the principles of mind power, often without naming them. They carry a sense of calm certainty, a knowingness that things are working in their favor. That certainty is not arrogance, it is energetic alignment. They are not struggling to believe they have become the belief. They think in harmony with their desires, and they act in accordance with their inner vision. This is why they seem to walk through life with grace. It is not that they don't face challenges, but that their internal atmosphere doesn't allow the challenge to define them. They see themselves as creators, not victims. And that shift in identity transforms everything. Troward taught that the subconscious mind is impersonal, tireless, and precise. It does not judge your thoughts. It accepts whatever you consistently offer it without resistance, without delay. If you repeatedly tell yourself you're not good enough, not worthy, not smart enough, your subconscious builds those beliefs into reality. It's not punishing you, it's obeying you. And because your subconscious is the builder of your experiences, Your life is ultimately a mirror of your persistent inner dialogue. This is why it is so vital to examine your self-talk, to become aware of the inner scripts you repeat daily. Most people are having conversations with themselves that they would never dare to have with another person. They speak words of limitation, of fear, of shame, and they wonder why life reflects those exact conditions. The divine law cannot contradict your belief. It must conform to it. That is the key Troward placed in our hands. Emotion is the fuel of manifestation. Thought gives direction, but emotion gives power. If you visualize success with a cold, detached feeling, the image holds little charge. But if you infuse that image with joy, excitement, gratitude, and anticipation, you ignite the creative process. This is not an abstract idea. It is the way energy works. Just as electricity needs current to flow, your thoughts need emotion to manifest. Every feeling you entertain sends a frequency into the invisible realm, and that frequency becomes the blueprint for form. You cannot expect to feel defeated and attract victory. You cannot dwell in resentment and receive love. You must align emotionally with what you seek. This is why Troward emphasized the practice of emotional cultivation, not suppression, but elevation. You don't deny what you feel, but you learn to shift your feelings by shifting your focus. You learn to speak to your subconscious in the language it understands. Feeling to do this, you must stop trying to change the outer world directly. Most people exert all their energy in fighting circumstances, rearranging conditions, and reacting to problems. But that is like trimming the leaves of a tree while ignoring its roots. The roots are your beliefs, your mental patterns, your emotional habits. If you do not change those, the leaves will grow back the same. This is where most people get stuck. They believe change comes from effort, from force, from fixing everything outside themselves. But lasting transformation happens from the inside out. When you shift your beliefs, your external world begins to shift naturally, often without strain or struggle. This is the art of living that Troward unveiled. He showed that creation does not require force, it requires flow. It requires alignment with universal principles. It requires knowing that the law of mind is always active, always responding, always creating. If you believe that life is hard, that belief becomes the lens through which you see everything. Opportunities will appear difficult. People will seem resistant. Success will look unreachable. But if you believe that life is unfolding in your favor, you will see doors where others see walls. You will attract allies where others encounter enemies. You will find flow where others find friction. This is not fantasy, it is physics. Your belief determines your perception, and your perception determines your reality. Troward taught that we live not in the world as it is, but in the world as we are. The outer is always shaped by the inner. If you want to change the world around you, begin by examining the world within you. That is the axis of true power. This is where the role of imagination becomes crucial. Most people use imagination destructively. They replay past wounds. They anticipate worst-case scenarios. They worry. They ruminate. They envision failure. And in doing so, they misuse the most divine faculty they possess. Imagination is not just for daydreaming, it is for directing. It is the steering wheel of consciousness. It is the means through which you impress the subconscious mind. Whatever image you hold with feeling and repetition, your subconscious begins to reproduce. In your experience, this is why visualization is so effective, not because it's a magic trick, but because it's the language of creation. When you visualize with belief, you tell your inner builder, this is the form I want you to create, and the builder begins to construct it using the raw material of the infinite. Troward explained that there is no limit to what the mind can create, because the mind is an extension of universal spirit, and spirit is infinite. Your only limits are the ones you believe in. If you think small, life shrinks to fit your thinking. If you think boldly, life expands. The boundaries of your life are set by the boundaries of your consciousness. This is not to say that obstacles won't arise, but that your response to them will be shaped by your mental atmosphere. A person with a strong mental foundation meets a challenge and sees an opportunity. A person with a fearful mindset meets the same challenge and sees defeat. The situation is the same, but the consciousness is different. And that makes all the differentiation of Troward's most profound teachings is that you are never at the mercy of conditions. Conditions are the result of thought. If you change the thought, you change the condition. But this requires faith in the invisible. It requires trusting that the law is working, even when you don't yet see the results. Most people give up too soon. They plant a seed and then dig it up, wondering why it hasn't grown. They affirm abundance but speak of lack all day. They visualize success but expect failure. And so the energy becomes confused, the signal scattered, the results delayed. The universe is precise. It does not respond to mixed messages. You must become congruent in your thought, word, and feeling. You must align all parts of yourself with the outcome you desire. This is not pretending, it is embodying. It is becoming the version of yourself who already has the thing you want. And living from that placidus is where inner work becomes sacred. It is not self-indulgent to reflect, to journal, to meditate, to speak affirmations. These are not luxuries, they are necessities. They are how you shape your mental soil. They are how you communicate with your subconscious. They are how you rewire the neural pathways that govern your behavior. The subconscious mind learns through repetition and emotion. So the more you impress it with positive, powerful, purposeful thought, the more it begins to respond. It starts to filter your perceptions differently. It starts to draw on people, ideas, and opportunities that align with your new vibration. You may think it's coincidence. It's not. It's creation. It's the law in action, but this process also demands honesty. You must be willing to face the beliefs that are sabotaging you. You must identify the thought patterns that no longer serve you. Maybe you were told as a child that money is evil, or that you're not lovable, or that success is dangerous. These beliefs may have taken root so deeply that you no longer recognize them, but your life reflects them. If you continue to experience the same blocks, the same disappointments, the same patterns, it is not bad luck, it is unexamined belief. And the good news is, beliefs can be changed. No matter how old, no matter how ingrained, they are not permanent. They are choices that were made often unconsciously and can be unmade through awareness and repetition. This is the work. This is the transformation Troward invites you into. Not surface change, but soul change. When you understand this, you stop trying to manipulate reality. You stop begging for miracles. You start creating from the inside out. You begin to see yourself not as a servant of life, but as a son or daughter of the infinite. You realize that the same intelligence that grows trees and forms galaxies lives within you, and that your mind is the portal through which that intelligence expresses. You were not born to suffer. You were born to create. You were born to embody the divine and express it in form. This is not arrogance. This is alignment. This is the truth of your being. And the more you accept it, the more your life begins to flow with power, beauty, and ease. This is not to say that challenges will disappear, but that you will meet them with new strength. You will no longer fear the storm. You will become the calm within it. You will no longer run from problems. You will rise to meet them with creative insight. You will no longer see yourself as separate from the source, but as an extension of it. This is the shift Troward wanted us to make, not from weakness to strength, but from ignorance to realization, from sleep to awakening, from victimhood to mastery. And that shift begins not in action, but in thought, not in doing, but in being. Being aware, being aligned, being the embodiment of what you seek. The universe does not play favorites. It responds to frequency. It is no respecter of persons, only of principles. If you align with the principles of mind, you unlock the flow. If you ignore them, you suffer by default, not as punishment, but as feedback. Your life is always showing you what you believe. And if you want something new, you must believe something new. That is the divine invitation. That is the open door. That is the eternal promise of the law that whatever you hold in mind with feeling will become your reality in time. Not because you are lucky, but because you are aligned with truth. And truth, as Troward showed again and again, is not hidden. It is right where you are, waiting to be recognized, believed, and lived. Of all the forces that shape human life, few are as invisible yet profoundly impactful as the force of belief. It is belief that gives structure to the unseen powers of the mind. Thomas Troward understood that belief is not merely a passive acceptance of ideas, but an active, generative force that sets the creative machinery of the universe into motion. Belief forms the mold into which the substance of reality is poured. It directs the power of the mind like a lens focusing the sun's rays into fire. Yet how often do we use this force unconsciously, believing in limitations, in defeat, in suffering, and thus reinforcing the very conditions we wish to escape? If belief can create a prison, it can also unlock paradise. The mind, when directed by belief, becomes the architect of miracles, and the blueprints it follows are etched not in stone, but in thought. There are many who try to change their conditions without ever changing their beliefs, like trying to alter the reflection in a mirror without shifting the object in front of it. The outside world is a mirror of the inner realm, and belief is the craftsman behind the image. If one believes deeply in scarcity, no matter how much wealth passes through their hands, it will eventually vanish, filtered through the sieve of their convictions. On the other hand, a person who is inwardly saturated with the belief of abundance will find opportunities, ideas, and resources gravitating to them like iron filings to a magnet. Troward's secret lies in the precision with which belief guides mental power. Just as a compass directs the ship's course through vast oceans, belief steers the direction of thought through the sea of possibility. This is why the careless formation of belief is one of the most dangerous activities a person can engage in, even unknowingly. Every time we declare something as true about ourselves, whether it be "I'm not good enough," "It's too late for me," or "I'll never be free," we etch that truth into the mold of our subconscious, and from that mold, our life continues to take shape. Troward emphasized that thought impregnated with belief is what manifests, not thought alone. Idle wishes and vague hopes are weak forces. They are like seeds scattered on stone, but thought clothed in the armor of belief becomes a living seed, drawing nourishment from the invisible and breaking through into visible expression. The spiritual laws are not emotional. They do not respond to need or desperation. They respond to belief, because belief reflects certainty, and certainty is the language of creation. How then does one develop this belief, this certainty? It is not through blind repetition or false affirmations spoken without conviction. Real belief is built gradually, like a structure. Each thought, each experience, each focused moment adds another brick. Troward suggested that belief grows by evidence, not external evidence, but inner logic. The mind must be persuaded, convinced by repeated exposure to new truths and the quiet contemplation of spiritual law. If one meditates long enough on the idea that the universe is mental, the mind eventually begins to see how every condition in life is preceded by a thought. It notices patterns, correlations, and then eventually a realization dawns. That dawning is the beginning of belief. And once belief has taken root, it becomes impossible to unsee the power one holds within. The power of belief is not limited to grand changes in fortune or massive success. It operates in the smallest things as well: the healing of a cut, the finding of a lost object, the improvement of a relationship. If one truly believes that the mind can influence life, then every moment becomes an opportunity to direct that influence. A person with cultivated belief understands that setbacks are not final, that failures are not fatal, and that reality is still malleable. This awareness breeds peace even in chaos. Troward insisted that the power of the mind, once harmonized with belief, becomes indistinguishable from divine action, because the divine is always operating through mental law. To believe, truly and deeply, is to align yourself with that divine process. One might say that belief is the engine, but thought is the driver. Without belief, thought spins in place, directionless and weak. But with belief, thought becomes focused, vibrant, alive. This is why some prayers are answered and others are not. It is not the prayer itself, nor the words spoken, but the belief behind them that creates results. A child's simple request, made with unshakable trust, may pierce the heavens, while a scholar's eloquent prayer falls flat if it lacks conviction. The spiritual world is moved not by eloquence, but by energy, and belief is concentrated energy. It is pure intent fused with faith, creating a current strong enough to shape matter. This is the divine secret that so many overlook. You do not need to beg life to change. You need only to believe differently. Many people wait for proof before they believe, but in the metaphysical world, it is belief that generates proof. To live by spiritual law is to invert the usual order of things. You do not believe because something happened, you believe so that it will happen. This may seem absurd to the rational mind, but to the higher mind it is the very foundation of power. You must become the cause, not the effect. You must think from the outcome, not toward it. You must act and think as though your vision is already real, and that belief will begin to harden into fact. Troward did not preach fantasy or self-delusion. He taught that belief, when rightly cultivated, is the key that unlocks the creative forces lying dormant in every soul. To understand belief fully, one must also understand the subconscious mind. The subconscious is the soil into which belief is planted. It does not reason. It does not judge. It accepts and produces. Once a belief is impressed upon it, it begins to act as if that belief is law. If you believe you are loved, your actions, posture, energy, and communication will reflect it, and life will respond accordingly. If you believe you are always rejected, you will subtly create and attract situations to reinforce that. This is not superstition, it is structure. The universe is structured to reflect consciousness. Change the belief, and the subconscious reorient the subconscious, and life obeys. This is how the hidden gears of reality turn. Troward's secret is not buried in ancient texts or cloaked in mysticism. It is in plain sight, waiting to be practiced with the full weight of attention and conviction. When you begin to direct your belief consciously, you no longer live at the mercy of appearances. You realize that facts are flexible and circumstances are clay. You begin to form your inner convictions not from what has been, but from what can be. You choose your beliefs as carefully as you would choose the foundation for your home, and once that belief is stable, you begin to build. Confidence is no longer a matter of ego, but of alignment. You feel as though an invisible force is working with you, because it is. Troward knew that belief does not work alone, it attracts spiritual intelligence, divine order, and universal principles that begin to cooperate with the mind that believes. You become a vessel through which greater things can be done, not by chance but by law. The challenge most people face is the fragmentation of belief. They believe in their power in one moment and then doubt it in the next. They affirm their vision by day and undo it with fear at night. But the law responds to the dominant belief, the one most emotionally charged and frequently held. It is not enough to believe on Sunday and doubt the rest of the week. One must persist, protect the seed of belief from the weeds of fear, and water it daily with mental attention. Just as the body is shaped by consistent nourishment, so the belief is shaped by consistent thought. Troward's teaching reminds us that spiritual law is always working, but it works through the mechanism we give it. If that mechanism is shaky, distracted, or filled with contradictions, the results will mirror that confusion. When belief is firm and consistent, the most incredible transformations begin to occur. The outer world shifts to match the inner picture. People, opportunities, and synchronicities appear as though orchestrated by a hidden hand. But it is not magic. It is mental law responding to belief. You do not manipulate this power through force, but through clarity. You do not command it arrogantly, but align with it humbly. You begin to live not just from the five senses, but from inner knowing. You walk with the quiet confidence of one who understands that life is not happening to them, but through them. The more you believe in harmony, the more harmony appears. The more you believe in love, the more love surrounds you. The more you believe in growth, the more life stretches to help you rise. This is not a poetic idea, it is a functional reality, proven by the lives of those who have dared to believe with persistence and depth. Belief is not about pretending, it is about perceiving a deeper truth. When Troward spoke of the divine secret of mind power, he meant that belief is the channel through which divine intelligence expresses itself in the material world. You do not need to force outcomes, you only need to hold the belief that they are unfolding. The seed does not struggle to become a tree, it simply follows the code within. Your belief is that code. Once aligned with truth, it contains the entire blueprint for your future. The mind, directed by belief, becomes unstoppable because it is no longer drawing power from ego or willpower, but from the eternal principle of law itself. You stop trying to control, and you begin to create. You stop begging for results, and you start expecting them, not with arrogance, but with spiritual certainty. This is the divine secret, and it is hiding in plain sight. It is not reserved for the elite, the educated, or the spiritual few. It is a power coded into every human being, waiting to be activated. Belief is the key that turns the lock, and once turned, the floodgates of potential swing wide open. You step into a world where limits dissolve, where the invisible becomes visible, and where the mind is recognized not as a servant to circumstance, but as the master of it. What if the most powerful thing in the world was something you couldn't see, couldn't touch, but carried within you every moment of your life? The greatest force is not in machines, weapons, or wealth, but in the invisible currents of your thought. Thought is energy, and energy never dies, it only changes form. That means every thought you think is alive in a realm you can't perceive with your eyes, but influences everything you do. If you were to truly grasp the scope of this, your life would no longer be at the mercy of outer circumstances. You'd understand that your reality is a mirror, and your mind is the projector. Most people spend their entire lives reacting to the mirror, rearranging the reflection instead of adjusting the source. But if you learn to wield the power of your own mind, you can redesign the reflection entirely, not through force, but through intention, clarity, and alignment with the deeper laws of the universe. These laws aren't hidden in ancient temples, they're hidden in plain sight, woven into your breathing, your heartbeat, your very capacity to imagine. You've been creating your life this whole time, but without knowing it, and unknowing. Creation is chaotic creation. The mind, when left untrained, becomes a storm, random, loud, and destructive. But when disciplined, it becomes a focused beam of light that penetrates obstacles, dissolves confusion, and attracts conditions that mirror its radiance. The divine secret is not that the mind can create, it's that it is always creating. Regardless of your awareness, that means every fear, every doubt, every silent worry whispered in your chest is a seed that seeks manifestation. Just as much as every dream or affirmation, the universe responds not to what you beg for, but to the signal you broadcast consistently. It listens to the vibration behind your words, not just the words themselves. This is why two people can say the same prayer, yet one finds transformation, and the other finds frustration. The power is not in the sound. It is in the consciousness that carries it. To understand the workings of this secret, look not outward but inward. The external world is slow and dense compared to the fluidity of the mind. The material world is like the echo, while the mind is the voice. Echoes follow voices, not the other way around. But society has trained us to believe in the echo, to believe in appearances, to believe that what we see is all there is. In this illusion, people become slaves to their environments, their conditions, their pasts. But the mystics, the visionaries, the world changers, they all stepped beyond the echo. They dared to believe in the invisible, to act from the unseen, and to trust in the unseen forces that respond to the clear and unwavering command of a focused mind. Thomas Troward taught that the mind isn't just a tool, it is the very field through which divine intelligence operates. It is both receiver and transmitter, capable of tuning into the wisdom of the universe and radiating its own frequency into the fabric of reality. The mind, when in harmony with divine order, becomes a creator of beauty, purpose, and healing. But when chaotic, it becomes a source of confusion, lack, and disease. Therefore, mental discipline is not a luxury, it is a sacred responsibility. You cannot afford to let your mind run on autopilot, fed by the noise of the world. You must become conscious of what you feed it. Every book you read, every conversation you entertain, every emotion you allow to linger, all are shaping the mold into which your life is being poured. The thoughts you repeat become beliefs, beliefs become patterns, patterns become behavior, and behavior becomes destiny. This is not poetic, it is mechanical. Just as water takes the shape of its container, your life takes the shape of your dominant mental image. If you keep replaying images of failure, betrayal, or scarcity, your mind will oblige by seeking or creating experiences to match. But if you begin to install new images, vivid, powerful, emotionally charged pictures of success, harmony, and abundance, your subconscious will accept them, and the universe will begin rearranging circumstances to match. You don't need to know how. That's not your job. The mechanism of manifestation is too vast, too interconnected for the conscious mind to comprehend. Your job is to hold the image with unwavering faith and live as if it is already real. But this process isn't instantaneous. The lag between thought and manifestation exists to protect you, to allow you space to refine your thinking. If every fleeting thought became real immediately, chaos would reign. Instead, the universe waits for repetition, for emotional intensity, for commitment. This is why idle thoughts rarely manifest, but deep fears and long-held desires often do. You are not punished by your thoughts, you are shaped by them. They become the architecture of your future, brick by brick, belief by belief. And so, the secret is not just to think positively, but to think deliberately, to think with awareness, to think with the understanding that every thought is a prayer and every belief is a decree. Your mind is not just personal, it is also connected to a greater mind, what Troward referred to as the universal spirit. When your thoughts align with the nature of this spirit, when they express love, order, harmony, creativity, they are amplified. They move through invisible channels, guided by laws that respond not to emotion or desperation, but to clarity and congruence. In this, you are never alone. You are constantly co-creating, either consciously or unconsciously, with forces beyond your senses. And these forces are always listening, not to your surface-level thoughts, but to your essence, your emotional tone, your true inner belief. This is why transformation does not begin with behavior. It begins in the invisible chamber of the heart, where belief and emotion intertwine. If you can change your belief at this core level, your behavior will change effortlessly. You won't have to force yourself to act differently. The action will follow naturally. This is why willpower alone fails. Willpower without belief is like trying to row upstream. But belief aligned with divine truth activates a current so powerful that you are carried forward with ease. The work is not to force but to align. And how do you align? Begin by observing your thoughts without judgment. Notice which ideas you replay, which voices you allow in your head. Whose beliefs are you carrying? Are they your own, or were they installed by others, parents, teachers, media, society? Strip away what does not belong to you. You cannot unlock your divine mind while clinging to borrowed limitations. Replace those with truths that reflect your infinite nature. Meditate daily. Speak affirmations with emotional depth. Visualize outcomes not as wishes but as facts in process. And most of all, trust. Trust in the invisible hand that shapes the scene. Trust that your thought, once released into the field of divine intelligence, will be answered in form, time, and manner that serve your highest good. Do not confuse trust with passivity. Trust is active. It fuels inspired action. When you align your mind with divine principle, action becomes effortless. You begin to feel led, nudged, guided towards certain ideas, people, or opportunities. These are not coincidences. They are answers. The mind aligned with divine order is not separate from life. It is the director of life. But to direct wisely, it must be free of noise, free of fear, free of contradiction. That is your daily work. To clean the channel, to remove mental static, to silence the lower mind so the higher can speak. And it always speaks in the language of peace, clarity, and quiet conviction. There is no limit to what can be accomplished through the right use of mind. Healing, prosperity, relationships, creativity, all are but expressions of mental law. You do not need to chase them. You need only to understand the law, tune into it, and allow it to work through you. The acorn does not force itself into a tree. It allows the blueprint to unfold. Given the right conditions, you, too, have a divine blueprint encoded within your mind. Your task is to create the inner conditions for its unfolding. That means eliminating doubt, cultivating inner peace, and persistently holding the mental equivalent of your desire. Mental equivalents are pictures of your desired state held with clarity, emotion, and repetition. They are not fantasies, they are blueprints that guide the creative power of spirit into form. You don't need to beg life for what you want. You need to match it vibrationally. And vibration is shaped by belief, emotion, and imagery. These are the tools of the divine mind. This is your secret arsenal, not in fighting the world, but in reshaping yourself. When you change your inner world, The outer cannot help but change in reflection. This is not philosophy, it is law, and law, once understood, can be used with precision. Just as a pilot learns the laws of flight, so must you learn the laws of mind. Just as a surgeon masters anatomy before making a single cut, so must you master thought before expecting change. This knowledge is not for the elite, it is your birthright. But like all great power, it comes with responsibility. You must become the guardian of your mind, the architect of your thoughts, and the caretaker of your beliefs, because the divine secret of mind power is not just that you can shape reality, it's that you are shaping it. Right now, this very second, whether you realize it or not. The most profound truth about the mind is that it never stops creating, whether we are conscious of it or not. Thought, being the seed of all action, is the invisible cause behind every visible effect in our lives. What you believe, whether deliberately or subconsciously, becomes the blueprint that the universe follows to construct your experiences. The mind is never idle. It is either building or breaking, either opening doors or closing them, either summoning light or dwelling in shadow. The moment you realize that your thoughts are the architects of your reality, you begin to understand the immense power that lies within you. It's a silent force, not screaming for attention, but patiently sculpting your world with every mental impression you entertain. The divine secret of mind power is not only in understanding this, but in mastering the art of using it deliberately, with purpose and intention. It is not merely about positive thinking, though that is a step on the path. It is about conscious creation, the disciplined ability to hold a mental picture with unwavering faith until the material world is compelled to reflect it. When a person becomes aware that their thoughts have magnetic power, everything begins to shift. Circumstances cease to appear random. Patterns reveal themselves. The law of attraction, though often misunderstood, operates with unwavering consistency. You draw into your life people, experiences, and results that are in harmony with your dominant thoughts and feelings. This is not superstition, but a law as real as gravity. Thomas Troward spoke of the subconscious mind as a fertile soil. Whatever you plant in it, whether fear or faith, lack or abundance, despair or hope, will take root and multiply. The subconscious doesn't argue. It accepts what the conscious mind impresses upon it through repetition and emotion. When you understand this relationship between conscious suggestion and subconscious acceptance, you begin to see your mind as a tool, not a tormentor. To cultivate this power, one must become a vigilant observer of thought. Most people allow their minds to be pulled in every direction by the noise of the world, by fear, by comparison, by past traumas, and by imagined futures. They do not guard the gates of their mental temple, and as a result, they live lives of reaction rather than creation. But the awakened mind learns to pause, to direct, to command. It replaces panic with peace, worry with wonder, doubt with determination. This is not done overnight. The mind is like a muscle, and mental discipline is a daily practice. Meditation, affirmation, visualization, these are the tools that sharpen your focus and increase your inner strength. Through consistent practice, the mind becomes a channel for divine energy, rather than a sponge for external kaosun. Of the greatest applications of mind power is the ability to transcend limitation. Every obstacle, every block, every wall is first erected in the mind. It is not that the mountain before you is impossible to climb, it is that you have been conditioned to believe that you cannot climb it. When a person begins to affirm the opposite, when they begin to speak the truth of their power instead of the illusion of their weakness, the universe responds in kind. The walls begin to dissolve. New paths appear. Help arrives from unexpected places. Life rearranges itself around your new vibration. This is not magic, but alignment. You are not a beggar hoping for crumbs from fate. You are a co-creator of reality, endowed with divine faculties, entrusted with the greatest gift imaginable, the ability to think and believe, and thereby shape existence itself. But to use this power effectively, one must also purify the mind. A mind cluttered with resentment, jealousy, regret, or guilt is like a stream choked with debris. The divine current cannot flow freely through it. Forgiveness, both of self and others, is essential. Gratitude, too, is a spiritual cleanser. When you begin to thank the universe not only for what you have, but for what is yet unseen, you shift your frequency from desperation to expectation. And expectation is the magnetic field in which miracles occur. A grateful heart is a magnet for abundance because it signals to the universe that you are already aligned with what you seek. In this way, the future rushes to meet you because you are no longer postponing joy. Another critical truth is that the divine mind power works best when you are calm. Panic disrupts, fear scrambles signals, anxiety distorts perception. Peace, however, aligns you. That's why silence and solitude are not just luxuries, they are necessities. They allow you to hear the whisper of higher guidance. When your mind is still, intuition awakens, solutions emerge. You begin to act from inspiration rather than desperation. Thomas Troward emphasized the principle of spiritual receptivity. When you cease striving and start listening, the answers come not with noise, but with knowing. It is in the stillness that you reconnect with Source, and from that connection, everything becomes possible. You do not have to force the world to give you what you desire. You simply have to align yourself with the frequency of its fulfillment. It is also important to understand that mind power is not isolated. It is part of a divine matrix, connected to all life. Every thought you emit is a signal sent into the field of infinite intelligence. This field responds not only to the content of your thoughts, but to the energy behind them. If you say, "I am rich but feel poor," the universe responds to the feeling, not the words. That's why emotional congruence is vital. The mind must believe, but the heart must feel. When both are aligned, manifestation becomes inevitable. Your inner world becomes a blueprint, and the outer world builds accordingly. This is the secret behind prayers that are answered, goals that materialize, dreams that come to life. It's not that some people are more blessed than others, it's that some people have learned how to activate their divine blueprint. Repetition is another key. A single thought is like a drop of water on stone, but repeated thoughts carve rivers. That's why affirmations work when they are persistent. That's why visualization becomes powerful when it is emotional and consistent. The subconscious mind needs consistency to override old programming. You cannot plant a seed today and dig it up tomorrow to see if it's growing. You must water it daily with faith. You must speak to it as if it's already a tree. That's how mind power works. It responds to belief, not doubt. It responds to certainty, not hesitation. The more you hold the picture, the more real it becomes. Your energy molds it into form. Even when nothing seems to be changing, the unseen forces are rearranging behind the curtain of time. And then one day, the curtain opens, and what you believed in faith becomes what you behold in fact. But many sabotage this process through impatience. They demand instant results. They try to force outcomes. But divine timing is not human timing. The mind must be trained not only to visualize, but to trust. Trust is not passive, it is a powerful force. It is the bridge between intention and manifestation. When you trust, you stop sending mixed signals. You become stable in frequency. And that stability makes you a lighthouse rather than a flickering candle. You stop chasing and start attracting. You stop begging and start commanding, not from ego, but from alignment. The universe loves clarity. When you are clear, it becomes clear. When you are certain, it becomes swift. When you are faithful, it becomes generous. Another truth is that the mind has creative cycles. There are moments of expansion and moments of incubation. Just like the seasons, your mind goes through phases. There are times when inspiration floods in and times when silence lingers. Both are holy. Both are necessary. Just as the seed needs winter before it bursts into bloom, so your ideas need gestation before they rise into reality. Don't curse the quiet seasons. Use them to refine your vision. Use them to align your energy. Use them to prepare your container for the blessings to come. The divine secret is that manifestation is not an act. It is a process, and every part of the process is sacred. Do not rush the rhythm of your becoming. The most beautiful part of mind power is that it cannot be taken from you. Your job may disappear. Your relationships may change. Your health may fluctuate. But your power to think, to believe, to imagine, to create, that is eternal. That is your divine inheritance. It cannot be stolen, only forgotten. But once remembered, it can move mountains, heal bodies, transform destinies. You are never without a tool. You are never without a chance. The moment you change your thought, you shift your trajectory. The moment you believe something greater begins to unfold. This is not wishful thinking. This is spiritual law. And finally, the mind must always be anchored in love. Love is the highest frequency. It heals what logic cannot. It bridges what reason cannot. When your thoughts are rooted in love, your intentions become pure. You no longer seek success to impress, but to express. You no longer manifest out of lack, but out of fullness. And the universe, recognizing your alignment with the divine heart, pours back into you with multiplied favor. You rise not only for yourself, but to become a blessing to others. That is the highest use of mind power, to become a vessel of light in a world still finding its way. The human mind, when purified from fear, doubt, and limitation, becomes a vessel through which the infinite can flow without obstruction. This idea is not poetic idealism, but a practical and provable law of life. Troward understood that if the individual could clear the pathways of the inner mind, what remained would be the clear channel through which divine intelligence could work its miraculous order. What prevents us from realizing this potential is not a lack of intelligence, but a misplacement of attention. We have turned our focus outward to the conditions, rather than inward to the cause. The outer world is only an echo of what has already formed within the mind. The sooner one accepts this, the sooner one begins to command life from its center instead of being pushed around by the circumference. Troward's teachings are not about control in the way that the world defines it through force or dominance, but about alignment. True power lies in aligning oneself with the universal flow, not in attempting to resist it or dominate it. The effort to control outcomes through sheer will, without regard for the deeper order of things, only produces stress, confusion, and eventual collapse. But when the mind begins to recognize its nature as a co-creator, a participant in a much greater intelligence, then each thought becomes sacred, each emotion a compass, and each desire a whisper from the infinite. The secret is not hidden from anyone. It is hidden by everyone from themselves. It's buried beneath years of conditioning, cultural narratives, fear-driven habits, and emotional scars. But the moment one decides to uncover this inner treasure, the entire universe begins to conspire in favor of that awakening. The laws of life are not cruel or partial. They are precise and unchanging. They do not favor saints over sinners, nor the wise over the foolish. They respond to the quality and intention of thought. Just as gravity responds to mass, the divine mind does not judge, it operates. It is man who judges, and in doing so, limits his own experience. To rise above the maze of conflicting beliefs and contradictory patterns, one must begin with a deep inner sincerity. The sincerity becomes the key that unlocks the first door, a willingness to see life as it really is, rather than how one has been told to perceive it. There is a kind of spiritual courage that this requires, for it is easier to blame than to take responsibility. But in choosing responsibility, the mind awakens to its role as a channel of divine intention. The mind that begins to see itself as a spiritual instrument rather than a biological accident begins to operate on a whole new frequency. This is not merely metaphor. Troward hinted at the vibrational nature of thought long before science began to recognize the implications of frequency and energy in psychological and neurological function. Every thought you think sends out a wave. Every feeling you embrace becomes a magnet, and every word you speak solidifies that wave and magnet into form. This is not mysticism. This is mechanics. When one begins to understand that the universe is mental in its design and spiritual in its source, then every moment becomes a moment of creation. You are not just reacting to life, you are radiating into it. And the quality of what you radiate determines what you magnetize in return. The mistake many make is trying to use this law in bursts. They become inspired by the idea of mind power, practice for a day or two, and when they don't see instant results, they retreat back into doubt. But spiritual law is not about instant gratification. It is about sustained vibration. You do not plant a seed and then dig it up every few hours to see if it has sprouted. You trust in the unseen work that occurs beneath the soil. Similarly, You must trust the power of your inner work even when the outer conditions still appear unchanged. This is the testing ground, the proving stage, the moment when your faith in the unseen determines the future that becomes seen. All lasting change begins in silence. All lasting power is born in patience. The man who insists on quick returns is like a child shouting at a tree to grow faster. Nature does not respond to demands, but to harmony. If your life is not reflecting beauty, abundance, peace, or joy, it is not because the law has failed. It is because your inner atmosphere does not yet support those manifestations. This is not a cause for guilt, but a call to refinement. Troward made it clear that the mind is like a garden. You do not curse the weeds, you remove them. You do not mourn the barren patches, you plant new seeds. And above all, you remain committed to nurturing what you have planted. The work is not dramatic, it is not loud, it is not showy. It is quiet and persistent. The transformation of thought requires a daily, even hourly vigilance. You must become aware of what you are thinking, not with anxiety, but with curiosity. You must observe your patterns without judgment. You must be willing to change not just your outer routines, but your inner assumptions. If you assume the world is against you, life will confirm that belief again and again. But if you assume that life is responding to you with intelligence, love, and purpose, the same confirmation will rise in ways you never imagined possible. People often ask, but what if my thoughts are unconscious? What if I'm not even aware of what I'm believing? This is the crux of inner work. The unconscious does not remain hidden to the sincere observer. Your life conditions are your subconscious script playing out in 3 dimensions. You don't have to dig through memories or find the exact moment you adopted a certain belief. You only have to look at what keeps repeating, and from there, work backward. If your relationships are always filled with distrust, ask yourself what you believe about love. If your finances are always in turmoil, ask yourself what you believe about abundance. The answer will rise to the surface not with effort, but with sincere intention. The mind is not trying to sabotage you. It is simply repeating what it has been taught. But once it is shown a higher pattern, it can and will conform. This is the real alchemy, not turning lead into gold, but turning fear into faith, turning doubt into clarity, turning habit into harmony. Troward emphasized the power of constructive thought not just because it sounds nice, but because it is the only way to direct creative energy. Destructive thought, based on fear, resentment, guilt, or inferiority, becomes like a kink in the hose. The water still flows, but it sprays in unpredictable directions, damaging more than it blesses. Constructive thought, however, becomes like a finely tuned instrument. It allows the power to move smoothly and beautifully, shaping your world according to a higher order. But this requires more than momentary motivation. It demands a shift in identity. You must see yourself not as someone trying to become powerful, but as someone already infused with divine power, now learning how to let it flow without resistance. This shift changes everything. When you stop trying to earn your worth and instead begin to express it, you move from survival to sovereignty. People often fear their own power because they associate it with arrogance. But true power has nothing to do with ego. The ego seeks control. The spirit seeks expression. When you realize your power is not yours alone, but is the life force of the universe seeking to move through you, you stop being afraid of it. You begin to honor it. You become a steward of it. And in that stewardship, you become free. You stop looking for permission to speak, to create, to act. You stop waiting for someone to validate your path. You realize the divine already did that when it breathed life into you. That breath is your credential. That breath is your proof. That breath is your authority to live fully, love deeply, and create boldly. The mind that operates in harmony with divine law becomes an instrument of miracles, not because it performs magic tricks, but because it ceases to block the natural magic of life. Healing, abundance, peace, joy, these are not rewards from the universe. They are the default state when inner resistance is removed. You do not have to chase them. You only have to align with them. But this alignment is a full-time posture, not a part-time performance. You cannot pray for peace and then practice worry. You cannot affirm prosperity and then live in mental poverty. You cannot declare wholeness and then habitually speak of your limitations. The universe listens not to your words alone, but to the vibration behind them. What you say matters, but what you believe matters more. And what you believe is ultimately revealed by what you repeatedly do. Troward taught that the mind is both the mirror and the mold. It reflects what has been, and it shapes what will be. If you look at your current life and feel disheartened, remember that you are not doomed to repeat it. But you must stop using today's evidence as tomorrow's blueprint. You must learn to mentally live in the world you desire, even before the evidence shows up. This is not delusion, it is decision. You are choosing to trust the deeper law, the invisible reality, the spiritual certainty that what you focus upon, with feeling and faith must come into form, not because you are forcing it, but because you are allowing it. This allowance is not passive, it is powerful. It says to the universe, I trust you, I align with you, I expect good because you are good. And that expectation becomes the signal that reorders your circumstances from the inside out. The most sacred space you will ever enter is the silence of your own mind. It is there that the divine speaks, not in thunder or fire, but in quiet impressions, nudges, insights, and moments of knowing. The world may clamor for your attention, but your transformation happens in the stillness. You must make time for it. You must protect it. You must value it as much as any external goal, because from that silence arises the real power, not just to succeed in the world, but to live from a place where success is no longer measured by status, but by serenity. You will know you are awakening when peace becomes your priority, not just your pursuit. You will know you are aligned when gratitude becomes your first instinct, not your last resort. And you will know the divine secret of mind power not as something you read or hear, but as something you embody, breathe, and express with every fiber of your being. There's a moment in the journey of every seeker when the inner and the outer world collapse into one undeniable truth. Everything we are seeking lies within us, not in books, not in teachers, not in rituals, though they may guide us, but in the silent depth of our own mind, the eternal doorway to the infinite. This is the ultimate revelation of Thomas Troward's wisdom, the divine secret of mind power in its most luminous form. All previous parts have been a steady walk toward the summit. And now, standing here, the view is not outward, but inward. What you see is yourself, not the limited self you thought you were, not the image constructed by circumstances or beliefs or fears, but the pure self, limitless, radiant, inseparable from the source itself. When Troward spoke of the power of the mind, he was never referring to mere thoughts or intellectual noise. He meant the mind that is aligned with the divine principle, the universal spirit, the mind that is no longer bound by time, space, or conditioning. This mind is not something we acquire, it is something we uncover, like sunlight hidden by layers of clouds. Our work is not to create light, but to remove what obstructs it. Once we do, the mind becomes a mirror to the infinite, a channel for divine intelligence to flow through into this world. To access this state, you must train your consciousness to become still. In the stillness, there is clarity. In the silence, there is recognition. The outer noise fades and the inner voice, once faint, now speaks with authority and peace. This voice does not shout, it whispers. And it whispers truths you have always known but forgotten. You are not broken. You are not weak. You are not alone. You are one with the very power that formed stars and galaxies. You are not separate from God. You are an individualized expression of God's mind, given the gift of choice, intention, and creation. But how do we live this truth? How do we move through a world of distractions and pain while holding this divine center? The answer is found in how we think, how we feel, and how we act. Each thought is a prayer. Each feeling is a vibration. Each action is a seed. When these three align with the truth of who we are, we create not just results, but reality itself. The mind no longer reacts, it commands, not with arrogance or force, but with sacred authority. We do not beg the universe for blessings. We become the channel through which blessings flow. The practice begins with awareness. You must learn to catch every thought that diminishes your divine identity. Every I can't, every I'm not good enough, every it's too late. These are the lies that block the light. Replace them with the truth, not superficial affirmations, but deep, resonant affirmations that come from the center of your being. Say, I am power, and feel it in your bones. Say, I am light, and radiate it in your presence. The mind listens to what you repeat, and what you repeat becomes your atmosphere. Your atmosphere becomes your magnet, and your magnet draws your future. When you begin to understand this, fear loses its grip, anxiety fades, not because you've escaped difficulty, but because you've remembered your power. The same power that Troward explored in his work quietly, reverently. Like a man decoding the architecture of the universe is the power you now hold in your hands. You become responsible for your own vibration. You become the guardian of your mental garden, choosing only thoughts that align with your highest self. The world will still offer you contrast. It must. That is the law of growth. You will still encounter people who doubt, energies that conflict, moments that test your alignment. But you will no longer be at their mercy. You will carry your peace like armor, not to block others, but to protect the sacred frequency you are cultivating. You will walk into rooms and change their temperature, not because you demand it, but because your energy commands it. This is not charisma. This is not performance. This is resonance. The divine mind is always available to you, but it will not force itself upon you. It waits for your invitation. It responds to your surrender. When you release the need to control and open to guidance, when you stop pushing and start aligning, miracles become normal. You understand that what you seek is not outside of you. It never was. You have always been connected. You just forgot. And now, in remembering, you reclaim your divine inheritance. The beauty of this truth is its simplicity. There's no complex ritual. There's no hierarchy of worthiness. There's only consciousness. The more you raise it, the more you see. The more you see, the more you become. This is the divine loop. Creation and creator in dialogue, using your mind as the sacred language. When Troward wrote of the power of thought, he wasn't offering theory. He was offering a divine equation. Thought plus belief plus feeling equals form. This is how God creates. This is how you must create. Now you must ask yourself, not with fear, but with reverence, what are you creating? Not what are you wishing for? Not what are you hoping might happen? But what are you truly commanding through your mind's vibration? Are you creating from fear or from faith, from reaction or from intention, from illusion or from divine identity? These are not philosophical questions. These are the keys to your reality. Do not underestimate your power, even for a moment. The greatest lie ever told is that you are small, limited, broken, or separate. You are none of these. You are the divine mind expressing itself in form. You are the bridge between the unseen and the seen. You are not here to beg life to be kind to you. You are here to declare what life will become through you. This is not arrogance, it is sacred duty. Each day, return to your center. Begin the morning not with noise, but with silence, not with urgency, but with gratitude. Close your eyes and speak to the divine within you. Say, use me today. Think through me. Love through me. Heal through me. Guide me in all things. Then listen. Then act. Then watch as the ordinary becomes sacred. Watch as problems dissolve not because you fought them, but because you rose above their vibration. Watch as you become magnetic to wisdom, to opportunity, to grace. And when darkness comes, as it inevitably will, do not fear it. Remember, darkness is not the opposite of light. It is the absence of awareness. Bring your awareness into it. Speak light into it. Say, even here, I am not alone. Even now, I am powerful. This is the true test of mastery, not whether you can feel good when life is easy, but whether you can stand in your divine identity when life is hard. If you can do that, then you are free, truly free. There will come a time when others will look at you and ask, what changed? They will see something in your eyes, something in your voice, something in your very presence. And you will smile, not from ego, but from knowing. You will say, I remembered who I am. That is all. That is everything. The moment you remember, the shift begins. The mind, once chaotic, becomes calm. The heart, once guarded, becomes open. And life begins to reflect your new vibration, like a mirror reflecting the sun. This is what Troward knew. This is what he tried to show us. That the mind is not just a tool, it is the sacred gateway. That we are not victims, we are vessels. That reality is not fixed, it is fluid, shaped by our deepest convictions. and that God is not distant but dwelling within us, waiting to be revealed through our thoughts, our choices, our lives. The divine secret of mind power is not just a philosophy. It is a lived truth. It is the awareness that you are the thinker of the thought, the chooser of the feeling, the speaker of the word, and therefore the creator of your world. Once you know this, truly know it not just in theory, but in experience, nothing can ever be the same again. You begin to walk differently, speak differently, choose differently. You become a conscious creator, and the divine rejoices through you. And so, as this journey ends, a new one begins. A journey not of seeking, but of remembering, not of hoping, but of knowing, not of limitation, but of limitless becoming. Carry this truth within you as you move forward. Let it be your compass, your comfort, your quiet fire. The divine mind is with you in you as you. You are no longer asleep. You are no longer in doubt. You are no longer waiting. You are the light, and now it is time to shine.